The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. Summer League basketball is here. My name is Mike, here with Sam. How's it going, Sam?
There's nothing quite like watching the Suns, whether it's the regular season Suns or the Summer League Suns, get the brakes beat off of them, which is what we just witnessed. We're recording late Monday night here. It's actually Tuesday morning already on the East Coast where I am. But the Summer League Suns played 3 games in 4 nights. Definitely want to get a lot of our reactions to just what's happened so far. And yes, there's going to be one more game on Wednesday. So, we'll cover that at some point as well. But I definitely feel like we've gotten a reasonable sample size. Started off on a high note with a win against, God, who did they play in that first game? I can't even remember anymore. The Wizards. Beat the Wizards by 20. Lost to the Hawks by 18, and then lost to the Kings.
Ryan Dunn and Malowach in that game.
Yeah, that one doesn't count as far as I'm concerned. Lost to the Kings tonight by 18. A little more concerning in this one because they had everyone. And I'm good. Look, there's real basketball being played. My heart just starts fluttering a little bit when I see the ball swinging around the court, and I know it just makes our conversations, what we're capable of talking about, a lot more interesting, to be honest with you. So yeah, I'm good. I'm ready.
Lost by 18 today, but really they lost by 30 in this game because everyone pulled the plug at the end of that one, and then that's when the Suns made a little run at the end of the game. Game was already over. I could see the Phoenix Suns trauma from the fan base online seeping into the conversation about Summer League.
That's hilarious.
Although it is real basketball, it's also not. It's very much not real basketball at the same time. And this was a good reminder of that in this particular game because the Suns could not score. They really could not score.
So sloppy. Just in general, if we can take the, 10,000-foot bird's eye view for a second, maybe those of you at home, maybe you've watched these games, maybe you haven't. This is sloppy basketball. Even the game that they won by 20 against the Wizards on Friday night was sloppy basketball. And there are good takeaways and there are bad takeaways, but you're 100% right, Mike. They don't have... first of all, they don't have a point guard who is remotely capable on this Summer League roster, unfortunately.
Yeah.
If we just want to start there, Yuri Collins has been starting. I was hopeful that he could provide some... not scoring punch exactly, but just this sort of pass first attitude, which is what he brought throughout his college career. He's been in the G League with the Warriors affiliate the past couple of years. Really, really has been struggling. Boogie Ellis is the other guy that they really have running point guard on this roster. He's had spurts maybe, but mostly has not, I would say. So, just from there, it's been really hard for them to get anything going offensively, because it looks like the Summer League equivalent of the Elie Okobo, DeAnthony Melton Suns a lot of the time, right? That's just kind of what it's been.
If anything, four of these guys that are playing in Summer League, especially today, being that everyone played today, 4 of these guys are on the roster. And it really is just a reminder that they need a point guard on the regular roster as well. I love Colin Gillespie, don't get me wrong. Award winner, Colin Gillespie. But they need a real high-level NBA point guard on this roster at some point for these guys because the Summer League roster doesn't have one. But even the regular roster has Colin Gillespie, and Devin Booker is obviously by far the best playmaker that's going to be on the team, and he will do a good job creating shots for these guys.
Mm-hmm.
But, he misses a game. They got nothing. They got no shot creation. They're going to have to rely on Jalen Green shooting 50 times a game.
Yeah.
And, sometimes that works, and most of the time it doesn't.
Exactly. Those are the real alarm bells that were going off in my head as I was watching tonight. It's just, like you said, Book is probably, given history, not going to play 82 games. And even if he does, even if he has an awesome, healthy season, let's say Book plays 75 games this year, has a season where he qualifies for all NBA type awards and all that stuff, he's still playing 34 minutes a game. And there's going to be a lot of minutes with Book off the floor. And if your only answer on the roster as of now, in terms of how you can penetrate and maybe create some shots for others, is Jalen Green, like, they are playing an unprecedentedly dangerous game there. I just don't think the roster has the juice. And, they have a lot of athletes here. They really do. Mm-hmm. And they have a lot of guys. Like, I think we're going to go through these guys one by one and talk about the potential. Like, I really do like a lot of the potential I've seen in a guy like Kaman Malawach, for instance, even though he's only played 2 games. And even though, honestly, he's looked bad throughout a lot of those 2 games, I still think the potential and the tools are absolutely there and as advertised a lot of the time watching him play. But if you're just talking about getting wins this year, you guys, I mean, we're going to have an open roster spot. We're anticipating that Beal's finally going to be off the roster this week.
Probably tomorrow, like Tuesday. Most of you listening to this on
100%.
Tuesday.
100%.
I'm guessing, but probably Tuesday.
Book needs some more help. he just needs some more help. Yeah. Like, if you guys are actually thinking about winning games this year, it's going to be difficult right now. That's my assessment.
I'm going to keep pushing some sort of Jalen Green, Kobe White trade as a trade that makes sense for both teams if they're gonna re-sign Josh Giddey as their point guard of the future. In some ways, obviously there would be more salary coming back to the Suns in that case, but somebody who could run the offense well Devin Booker's off the floor is necessary. And Jalen Green, I think his best future is not as the main ball handler in any lineup. Unless it's off the bench. And we'll see how that goes. But I do think that this roster, it's not really just, and this is a Summer League roster, we don't have to spend a long time talking about it, but it's not really just that there's no capable point guard. They haven't drafted one in a while. That's really all it is that they're drafting guys for other positions. If they had a young point guard on this team, they could probably get something out of that, somebody that they drafted in the first round or whatever, but they just haven't drafted one in a while, so they're playing with the guys that they've drafted. And if you think about the guys that they've drafted over the last 2 seasons, there's, centers and forwards. That's what they all are. And so there's a lot of overlap. So it's not, to me, watching this last game in particular, it's not just that there's no point guard. It's also the overlap in the way that the roster is built has made it sort of difficult for these guys to break out and do things on their own as well. I think where we should start is the guys that are returning in Oso and Ryan Dunn. And I think with Ryan Dunn probably first.
Sure.
Because he's played 2 games, and I think we're not going to see him again. I'm just guessing, but we have heard that he's not going to play the entirety of Summer League, so I'm guessing that he's not going to be back. Considering there's only one more game booked, right? There's only one more game on the schedule, right?
Only one more game. I mean, look, if the top 4 teams advance past Wednesday, but the Suns are now 1-2, and their point differential is now like -20, and they're obviously not going to be one of the top 4 teams.
Yeah.
So they're done. After Wednesday. Yeah, I agree with you. Let's start with Ryan. Ryan, I think, has only played... First of all, I guess it was kind of an interesting decision that Oso has played so much compared to Ryan. Do you think there's anything that went into that decision other than the fact that, like, maybe with roster construction, they just didn't plan to have another center? If Oso is out, I think that's kind of all that went into that, but I thought it was interesting.
No, I also think, and we can talk about Oso individually, I also think there's just such a lack of playmaking that, they're just leaning on the guy who could potentially make plays for other guys, and at times that worked really well. I think Oso really had his first kind of bad game against the Kings, but the first 2 games, I think he was legitimately the best player on the Suns, I think, for the first 2 games. Whereas this last game against the Kings, that was Ryan Dunn. And Ryan Dunn, he played 2 games. He missed the middle game in the last 3 games. He just looks good. I mean, he looks really good out there. He's out there doing what he did in the regular season, which is like an extreme high level amount of hustling. And I think for him, the confidence looks higher than it was even in last Summer League. Last Summer League, and to his credit, last Summer League and the beginning of the season, he was really confident in shooting the three. He shot the three really, really well in his rookie Summer League. Now he's shooting, but he's also finding ways to dribble the ball. His handle looks a little bit tighter. He looks a little bit stronger, and he's attempting to get shots in drives, even occasional mid-range shots, which
he's tried a couple. I can't remember if he made any.
The fadeaway in the post, that was the one.
Oh,
he
did do that.
Yeah.
No, you're right. That was in the Wizards game.
Otherwise, I don't think he's going to be shooting a lot of those in the NBA, so I'm not really concerned with him doing that a lot now, but I think in Summer League is a good time to test that out and see if there's something there. But, like all of these guys that we're seeing right now sort of have a ceiling of a role player, particularly in this coming season. Maybe Malowach's is higher. Honestly, maybe Ryan Dunn's could even potentially be higher in the future. I don't really know.
We're talking about, just this season?
Yes, just this upcoming season, right? None of them we expect to break out and be a star.
Ceiling, 4 or 5 years from now is way higher, I would say.
We don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's yet to be found. I mean, there was a lot of Joel Embiid references in the broadcast today, which I'm like, okay, we don't need to bring up an MVP with this 18-year-old right now. Those are the kinds of expectations we don't need to do right now. But Ryan Dunn, I think in particular, I mean, it's
I didn't mind it, but that's because I didn't mind it because it's the type of comment that makes me smirk, and think about the good potential, but also I'm not going to go onto Twitter and start harassing Kaman Malowach if he doesn't become Joel Embiid, right? And so I understand some people don't understand how to manage their expectations, but I don't mind. Compare him to Giannis. I don't care. Compare him to Joel Embiid. Maybe he is. Anyway, on Ryan Dunn, you were saying.
You see, Malowach's future is very important, but a lot of my personal happiness in the next year is dependent more on what Ryan Dunn looks like this coming season. And I realized that watching this Suns Summer League team. If Ryan Dunn looks really good this year, even if the Suns kind of suck, which I anticipate they're going to kind of suck, but even if they do kind of suck, and Ryan Dunn looks really good, that will have a particularly strong impact on my mood from a week-to-week basis in the coming season. And I'm not proud of that. I'm not excited to think about that. But it's really important for me for him to look good in this coming year. And he's a 29th pick in the draft. The expectations shouldn't be that high for him. But with the way that the Suns have worked out since the Kevin Durant trade, these draft picks kind of have to hit. They're not working with a lot after this, so these draft picks kind of have to hit. And with Ryan being the oldest one of them, and the guy that kind of is at NBA body-wise the most ready to make a semi-leap in his second year, the way he's looked in the Summer League has given me some level of confidence in the 2 games that he's played that he's going to look a lot better in this coming season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Ryan has done anything that's made me leap out of my seat in these 2 games, but he's just been so steady and efficient, and his body just looks great. I mean, you can really tell that he and Oso have been hitting the gym, and I know Oso's the one who gained 12 pounds of muscle or whatever he told reporters, but Ryan's
15
body...
15 pounds, but 12 pounds of muscle, yeah.
Exactly. But Ryan's body looks really good, and his conditioning looks good, and he's getting after it on the offensive glass. I think he had 4 offensive rebounds between these 2 games. And keep in mind, he only played 50 minutes. So he had 4 offensive rebounds in 50 minutes at his size, playing small forward. He also shot 50% from 3, 4 for 8 on, simple catch and shoots in these games.
A couple of pick and pops, though, which I think is
yeah, I think he had
him
one.
To be the screener and still doing that.
I think he had one off movement shot today, too, that didn't go in, obviously. But yeah, they're experimenting stuff. But it's clear what Ryan can be really good at, even against other NBA players right now, is the hustle stuff and the transition stuff. And I mean, yeah, you mentioned on Twitter how important it is, but if he's just out there chasing down 2 offensive rebounds a game, that right there is going to go a long way towards embodying the type of spirit that I know Brian Gregory and Matt Ishbia want this team to embody. And so, yeah, I'm not worried about Ryan. Ryan looked really good in these 2 games. And, I think he's a hard worker, and I would bet on him going forward.
I think if he's going to be a guy who is chasing rebounds, that's really, really beneficial for him because he's just a guy like, okay, I'm looking at his rebounds now. Offensive rebounds, 1 pre-All-Star, 1.8 post-All-Star. Mind you, the minutes went up, but only by like 1.4 minutes. So his overall offensive rebounds post-All-Star break in last season was almost 2 offensive rebounds per game, and that was in 20 minutes a game. If he can really start to impact on the offensive rebounding end, he needs to be the guy that creates additional possessions because he's not going to be the guy that's going to be ultra efficient. Now, if he can do both, if he can be ultra efficient and create multiple possessions, extra possessions for the team in every game, it's going to be tough to not play him 35 minutes a night. That's kind of how his career needs to look. On the other side of that, like marginal improvements, and he was asked in Summer League in one of the interviews, what did you work on in the offseason? And I think this was the right thing to say. He said a little bit of everything. He wasn't just focusing on one thing. He talked about his shot. He talked about his handle. He talked about his athleticism. He talked about his strength. He's trying to do it all. And all of that is important for him. If he can find ways to attack on closeouts a little bit better, especially if his shot gets better and they start closing out a little harder, 1 or 2 extra dribbles, finding a way to get to the rim to get to the line, that's going to be really important for him. Catching it and going in transition, which he was allowed to do now in Summer League. And the Suns want to play really fast in this coming year. We've heard Jordan Ott talk about it time and time again already. If he can find ways to catch it and go in transition, like those are the types of things where
without traveling,
when he's got the ball and he's moving and he makes good decisions while moving with the ball, that's going to be really, really, really important for this team and for his development because he did it a little bit last year, but not a lot. I mean, truthfully, he didn't dribble very well all year.
Well, and let's be honest. Like, I know Ryan's an older prospect. What is he, 23 now? Is he 23 yet?
I think so, yeah.
Or he's going to be 23 this season at least. But, like, he was a 2-year player at Virginia. He was a low-usage role player and a defensive specialist at Virginia. He was not allowed to push in transition and make plays for others. That wasn't his game. So he's had to come a long way in 12 months. And, it's not necessarily going to come that easily to him, asking him to be more involved in the offense compared to some of the other guys, compared to Oso, even, who I feel like has, had more experience with the ball in his hands for a few years now. Ryan's going to be constantly working on that. I did look it up while you were talking. His offensive rebound rate for the Suns last year, he was 5th on the roster in offensive rebound percentage and actually ahead of Oso in that stat, which is interesting. He was only behind the centers, Nick Richards, Mason, and Nurkic, and also, of course, Josh Okogie, who is just like the ultimate hustle wing, was 2nd on the roster somehow in that stat. But yeah, he's going to be able to continue to leverage his athleticism, leverage his quick second jump to get a couple of offensive rebounds a game, I think, as long as he's playing the minutes.
It's funny with Ryan Dunn just how easy it is to get sucked into the conversation about his offense. It in this game in particular, he started on Devin Carter, who played well. Nate Clifford killed the Suns in the first half. They switched him. Yeah, he was great. He looks awesome, by the way. And then Ryan Dunn was switched on to Nate Clifford in the second half and kind of erased him for the entire third quarter when he was on him. And, like, that's going to happen in Summer League. Like, Ryan Dunn has the ability in Summer League of they're just not going to swing the ball over to the guy that he's guarding. But in the NBA, when he's guarding stars, they're still going to have the ball because they can still score. And as much as his offensive improvement is going to be important for the Suns, he has to live up to what the defensive potential. The reason he was drafted is because of that defensive potential. Our friend Richie came onto the podcast and called him the best defensive player he's ever scouted. On our podcast, that's how he described Ryan Dunn. He looked good last year. Fouled a little bit too much, admittedly. Found ways to get beat. He's learning, right? It takes a little bit of time to be a great defender in the NBA compared to in college. But that's really where he has to shine, and that's really how he stays on the court. And we don't get to see a lot of that in Summer League. It's just different when you're playing against NBA rosters. So that's really the side of the ball. No matter how much we want to we want to get sucked into talking about the offense, the defense is what's going to keep him on the court next year. So I'm really hoping he could live up
yeah.
to that potential.
No, I agree with you. I think what you can see in Summer League is the competitive spirit, and that's been encouraging out of the Suns' defense for me, even though they are 1-2. Like, I really feel like these guys are competing in a way that the big league Suns did not last year defensively.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if that feels like a shot. It's honestly not.
No, it's true.
Just like
It's true.
It's just true. There's a pathetic.
They did
defense
just lose by 18 and we're down by 30 for half the game. But yes.
I know, but the defense wasn't that bad. The offense was just atrocious, in my opinion.
It really was
Anyway.
atrocious. Yeah.
So yeah, you feel the competitive spirit from these guys defensively, but a lot of it is just like, are you getting stops or are you just defending G Leaguers is hard when you like go from that to projecting towards how is this guy going to look in the NBA. So yeah, I mean Ryan's had some good stops, but hasn't had any crazy highlight plays, I think, defensively through 2 games.
Alchemy Roast is my favorite coffee. You've heard me talk about it time and time again, but it's time for you to go to alchemyroaster.com and try Alchemy Roast's coffee. Alchemy Roast is about more than just coffee. It's about passion, dedication, and community. They're a small batch roastery committed to sourcing the finest beans and mastering the art of the roast, and they do it ethically. It really is my favorite coffee, and I know those of you who listen all the time know I love coffee. You can get 10% off your order using the code TIMELINE at alchemyroaster.com. That's the code TIMELINE at alchemyroaster.com. Go on there, check out all their coffee. It's small batch coffee, so it's up to you to try as much of it as you can. They're only available for limited times, so go to alchemyroaster.com, check out what they have, make it as pour over, make it as espresso, make it in a drip machine. I've done it all. It all tastes great. All of it is good. Tanzanian beans right now. They have some on there. Peaberry coffee. I highly recommend it. There's a lot of other great coffee, but if you try that one, you know that I recommend it. It's really good. Once again, Alchemy Roast. Go to alchemyroaster.com. Use the promo code TIMELINE. Get 10% off. It also supports us here on the podcast, which we appreciate if you do.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
Let's talk about Oso, who
Yes.
has been up or down. I was really hoping to come into this podcast and say that, coming off of his first 2 games, he was awesome, and maybe he was going to go 3-0. He was going to have 3 awesome games, and then he turns in just one of the worst games I've ever seen from him tonight against the Kings. What do you make of the potential of Oso Ighodaro 3 games in?
Okay, I will say
Point forward, Oso Ighodaro.
there were multiple stretches in this Kings game when they were trying to get minutes with Fleming and Huntley on the floor that Oso was also playing. There was even minutes with Fleming, Malawach, and Oso on the floor. So I think for any of those guys to play well with that kind of spacing and that little of like natural off the ball movement is going to be a little bit difficult. I know the Suns want to play big, but like in some ways that's playing 3 centers with the way these guys have played in summer league,
In college,
so that
too.
can be difficult, and the way they played in college, especially Fleming,
Yeah.
who was just kind of a center for half the time. Having said all that, Oso in the first 2 games in particular showed exactly what you want to see out of him in order to envision him having a role in the NBA. But I think the most interesting thing and probably the most important thing for him is, can he play power forward on this roster? And that was something that they clearly experimented with. He's starting on the Summer League roster as a power forward next to Malawach in the games that Malawach played. And even in the games that he didn't play, he still spent time playing with other bigs on the floor. He can't shoot. And when I say he can't shoot, like he can't even shoot a mid-range shot.
It would be so helpful if Oso just had like an elbow jumper, but he doesn't.
Boris Diaw shot, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't even have
He's
that.
shaped like Boris Diaw. He might as well try to shoot it. He can't. He doesn't have the form for it. It's weird, like a catapult type form when he ends up shooting it. He would have to rebuild his entire form from the ground up to find a jump shot. Maybe that's possible for him in the future. Doesn't seem to be in the cards right now. If he plays next to a big who can shoot, which Malawach, I believe he's made 1-3 in 2 games.
He's 1 for 8 from 3 in 2 games. I would say Malawach's shooting is... we're going to get to him too. I would call it theoretical for now. Very highly theoretical.
Yeah. It clearly is, but they clearly trust him to launch in Summer League. If Oso plays next, if Malawach somehow shoots, or Mark Williams all of a sudden has a 3-point shot, or somehow they get another guy on the roster that can shoot threes next to him, or honestly, him and Fleming just find a way to play together, because Fleming's pretty big too, and can be a rim protector.
Totally.
If they find a way to get some sort of chemistry together, Oso becomes really valuable, because they're letting him, the same way we talked about with Ryan Dunn, they're letting him grab and go off the offensive rebounds. The other thing is, Oso's rebounding as a center, we talked about this in the first stream that we did, not like an excellent rebounder. His rebounding as a power forward, everything we've seen in the Summer League, dude's getting up there and getting the ball. He's finding ways to get the ball, because when he's matched up against a power forward, he has somewhat of a size and strength advantage. The rebounding shoots up. The passing is still there. He has the ability of being some sort of elbow hub, the way Dario Saric was on the Suns in the past. The way guys like Brandon Clark is another comparison that we've made for him. I don't know, Lamar Odom. It's just other guys who have that capability of being that hub.
A couple people on Twitter have wistfully said Ben Simmons. I would not nearly go that far, but
even Lamar Odom is like a huge stretch, of course, too. And Saric could shoot. But you have to look at the basket, right? If you're Oso in that role and there's shooters around you, you have to look at the basket.
Well,
he has done a better job at doing that at times in Summer League, but it has to be consistent.
Yeah, no, I do want to call out not one, but 2 lefty one-handed tomahawks
off his own drive.
So in terms of looking at the basket and not just automatically going to the little dinky 7-foot floater, he has shown spurts of it. Yeah, he absolutely has. But you're right, it needs to be more consistent. And it's not fair in a sense that when we talk about Oso's ability to hang in the NBA, it feels like what's going to make or break it, if he's able to play this hybrid role where he logs a lot of minutes at power forward, like what makes or breaks it is actually out of his hands, because it entirely depends on the shooting ability of who's playing next to him. And the Suns just didn't build an ideal roster for that. We're hoping that Mark Williams can take a few threes, maybe. We're hoping that Malawach can shoot. But there certainly isn't an Aaron Baines or Dario Saric or, I don't know, some stretch big to slot next to him right now on the roster. That would just make the fit a lot clearer than it is.
He's 6'10". He's not super short.
6'10",
but he's 6'10", 6'11" wingspan. So he's undersized to be a full-time center and doesn't really have the wingspan to make up for that. It's not like he's working with a 7'5" wingspan the way Malawach is.
What was Amari's wingspan back in the day? Because that, 6'10", 230, those are like Amari measurements, but I don't really remember what Amari's wingspan was.
Yeah, it's another good example of an undersized center. A different NBA even back then than now, although the NBA now is looking more like the NBA then as far as the size of guys than it was, say, 10 years ago, where Oso would have been just matched up against Draymond a little bit more often, and guys Draymond's size. But, if he finds a role and finds an ability to be a power forward, it would be really interesting for him. It'd be nice if there was something other than passing when he's away from the rim. Smart teams are going to be too smart for that. They're going to find ways to jump in that passing, and they're going to play way off of him.
He caught it a couple of times today in the first quarter. Again, like the first quarter, spacing was a disaster. They could not score, except for off of offensive rebounds. Like they made some great hustle plays, Ryan Dunn in particular. But, there's one play where Oso caught it in the corner, and it's just like, what's he going to do? There's absolutely nothing he can do out of that position. The one thing, and it's unfortunate that this guy sucked tonight too, but Kobe Brea, when you put Oso with a shooter or a guy who can work off of the DHO and has just like a fluidity to their game and a certain IQ out of that two-man game, then okay, maybe he can catch in the corner, he puts his back to the basket, immediately flips it into a DHO coming off of the wing, and you can like get downhill somehow. But the point is, Oso by himself, if he catches in the corner, he does not have the capacity to do anything out of that position. He's not just going to take it himself. He's not going to take the three. So he needs to figure something out. Be it a mid-range shot or something. There has to be more to his game.
Or like a really consistent drive game where he's sort of relentless in the drives. And by the way, it would help if he makes his free throws when that happens, because he struggled to do that last year. It almost sounds like we're being negative about him. I really think that his first two games he showed a lot. There were even times where they were giving him mid-post touches, which I think is a good way to force the defense out there on him in that mid-post area where it's a little further away from the basket. If he's catching it in the post, they're going to play up on him. Even if it's turning into a hook shot, if he's wide open, they still don't want to give him a wide open hook shot from that area. And at times you would think it would be some sort of split cut action where he's just holding it and waiting for guys to move around. Surprisingly, he was turning and facing up on guys. He was trying to drive. He had a really nice pass to Malawach in game one. Stuff like that is what he needs to add. There needs to be options for him. And you bring up Brea as somebody that worked well with him. And why is that? Well, they can't go under on Brea. They can't play a deep drop. You kind of have to have a guy up high in case Brea shoots. And when there's a little bit of extra space there for Oso, it's going to look a little better. And that's why if he plays with guys like Devin Booker, it's going to look a lot better for him than if he plays with Colin Gillespie off the bench. I hate to put him in this conversation, but guys that have gravity is where Oso can take advantage of space. And guys that don't, he's going to struggle. He's very context dependent, but the more he works on his game, the wider that context gets, if that makes sense. And I think for him, you saw a little bit more of that if he just keeps attacking the basket. That's really a big thing for him.
He has fascinating upside just because his skill set is so unique. But you're right, context dependent is exactly how I'd put it. He's one of the most context dependent prospects I can remember the Suns having, and at least as long as we've been doing this, as long as I've been watching the Suns, right? Like, I don't know, but maybe since Tyler Ulis, where it was like, well, how's a 5'9" point guard going to survive in the NBA? It's like, I can't think of,
and he didn't.
And he didn't, but I can't think of more difficult context than that. Like, for everything to break right for Oso, he is facing an uphill battle. But again, I know he's a hard worker.
What gives him a chance is the brain. He plays 100%, smart.
Yeah.
And the defense is pretty good too. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I
he's
think
surviving on the perimeter as a power forward, from what I can tell.
I think there's a world where defensively he makes a lot of sense there, and can be a weak side rim protector because he's actually really athletic too. He can get off his feet and get pretty high. Let's talk about Malawach.
For sure.
The youngest player on the team by far, one of the youngest players in the NBA. I think it's important to bring that up in the context of Summer League too. David, our friend, joined us on our broadcast for the first game, our playback broadcast, and very smartly warned everyone from the beginning, hey, don't forget that rim running centers struggle in Summer League unless they have like a star point guard next to them. It's just the role that they play is going to cause them to struggle, which I'm grateful he said that to me as well. And he has. And honestly, there's times where he looks pretty great too. The one thing I'll say is the moment he steps on the floor, he looks huge because he is, but like it really stands out when you see him on the floor, just how massive he is, especially because he still has a baby face, looks very, very young, but just has the body of like a monster. He's 7'2", insanely long arms, and just sort of dwarfs everyone in size and length when he's on the floor, particularly in Summer League, where there's just not a lot of players that are going to match his size and length on any team in the NBA, particularly the ones that are fighting for a roster spot, which most Summer League players are. But like without really great guard play, you're not going to get a lot of lobs at the rim for him. Are there things I think he could have done better in his pick and rolls as well? Yeah, I think there are things he could absolutely do better as a screener and as a roller as well. But you just haven't seen a lot of what I think he can contribute offensively if there was a guy like Devin Booker on the floor, someone we've been begging for like Chris Paul. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. So, not the efficient rim running, high true shooting offense that you could hope for or anything. I think there's good news and bad news when it comes with Malawach, my evaluation of Malawach through 2 games. Which do you want first? The bad news is... I mean, I'll do the bad news first. We already knew this, right? The rawness is real. He is a raw prospect. As a rookie, not comparing him to his college peers, but comparing him to other NBA players, I'm not sure that Kaman is going to be good at anything as an 18-year-old, right? I think he's going to survive as a rim runner, especially in the context next to Book. And I think he's going to survive as a shot blocker. But, good at anything? I don't know. I don't necessarily see it just through 2 games. I think the good news is I love the confidence that he plays with, and I love the fact that you can already tell every time he's on the floor, he is consciously pushing his game to its limits, right? They're giving him the ball. He is dribbling the ball. He's leaning into defenders, embracing contact, getting to the free throw line. He's taking threes, even though he's 1 for 8 so far. He's doing all of this stuff that, the number 1 overall pick in 2018, DeAndre Ayton, we begged him for 5 years to play outside of his game, outside of what he was used to, what he was comfortable with, even just a little bit, and he could never do it. And here's Kaman Malawach through 2 games, and it's he hasn't made those threes, and he hasn't, forced his way to the rim 30 times with the ball in his hands, or he's turning it over more than you would like, but you can already see the potential. You can already see a potential end game of this where 4 years from now, he has actual all-star tools, actual really, really high-level center tools. And so I totally see the high ceiling with Kaman. It's just, we're talking about a long game here as far as I could tell.
I'll say this. Anyone who questioned why the Suns also traded for Mark Williams on the same day that they drafted Kaman Malawach, you just got to watch these Summer League games.
Oh, my God. If he was their starting center this year, they're just, they don't have a chance at being a playoff team if that was going to happen. Not without rapid growth between now and, say, the new year, which can still happen. But
it definitely could. I think for him, what will be really, really, really helpful for him is having a clearly defined role as a rookie. And I think that's actually probably for him, if you're trying to test out the limits offensively, maybe you give him a little bit more freedom there. Defensively, it needs to be pretty clear. Does that mean that he only plays a drop? No, not necessarily. Maybe there are times where he plays a little higher because he did it previously. And if you're playing next to Oso Ighodaro, you can play a little higher and trust that Oso is going to be at the rim, or Fleming, or whoever other bigs that you're willing to play him with on the Suns. But just fully understanding that role is going to be really important for him, because there were times in the pick and roll where you could see him getting lost defensively, especially against the Kings in this game. And that's going to happen. That happens for every young big man, so you have to get used to that. I'm very grateful in a way that you and I sort of went through our own little training camp of learning how to watch a young athletic center in DeAndre and understanding when things are fine and when things aren't with him. You can sort of apply the same thing here to Malawach. And, there are times he's getting lost. There are times where it didn't look good. There are times where it looks great. And I think in particular, he's looked really good on help defense in the last few games defensively. But having a very clearly defined role for him, it's clearly going to be important for the Suns defensively. Now, if you want to talk about offense, what we know he's going to do a lot of is be in the dunker spot and then be rim running on pick and rolls over and over and over again. stretch it out to 3, test the limits of that. I'm not sure how long they're willing to do that if they're trying to compete.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, like if they're around 500 2 months from now, maybe and he's shooting 22% from 3. Maybe he stops shooting threes until he can make it at an 80% clip in practice or something. Like, you really got to prove it at that point. But if they're a few games under 500 a few months from now, or a few months from the beginning of the season, maybe you keep letting him shoot and just keep giving it a try. Stretch out what he's capable of.
And even if they get rid of the shooting, I know they're going to continue to let him dribble, right? It's not just going to be catch it at the top of the key and flip into a DHO and just some boring true rim runner like DeAndre Ayton, Clint Capella type shit. It's not going to be that with Kaman. You can already see teams sense that he has a loose handle. They think they can pick it off of him. So when he gets the ball at the top of the key, they're up in his airspace trying to pressure him, and that's where he seized a couple of opportunities to actually go towards the rim and lean his body into a defender and ends up getting to the free throw line. And if he does that in the NBA, yeah, he might average 3 turnovers a game in like a low usage role. It is entirely possible that happens as a rookie. You're also going to see some really cool highlight plays out of him, and like just some interesting ability to put pressure on the rim himself in a way that frankly is pretty rare for a center of his particular archetype. So, I see the long-term offensive vision with Kaman. I think he's a really interesting player. I'm just prepared for it to look kind of ugly for a while.
Yeah, and I think fans need to be a little bit prepared for that as well. I will continue to bring up his age every opportunity I get as a reminder because of just how young he is. The Suns haven't had a player this young since Devin Booker, and we need to be reminded of that regularly just to fully understand the time that it takes. Devin Booker was sort of we didn't know that he could be what he was so young, and maybe look, Malowich will have that kind of growth arc too. Who knows?
Devin Booker, deserves all the credit in the world for the way he was able to come in and change the Suns and, survived with 5 coaches in his first 5 years or whatever. But let's be honest, rookie Devin Booker, who came in to a team context of a Suns team that was decent, with a backcourt that was decent, that already had Eric Bledsoe and Brandon Knight, it's a little bit different to the role that Malowich is going to be taking on, where he's going to come in and he's going to play important minutes from game 1, and he's going to have to command a defense from game 1. It's just harder than what Booker had to do as a rookie. Booker was sensational as a rookie, and none of us expected him to be turning in 25, 30-point games as a rookie, which he was doing at a certain point of the season so soon. And yet I would still always say that if you're a rookie center, it's just harder. Your ability to adapt to the next level.
It's been a couple of dunks for Malowich so far. Probably 4, maybe 5 dunks so far in the 2 games that he's played. And, man, does he throw it down hard. He throws it down hard every opportunity that he gets. And I'm reminded of the story Zach Lowe told on his podcast post-draft that he spoke to some coaches from Malowich, and they said, we're worried about him injuring his hands. And he said, oh, really? Why? What's wrong with his hands? And they were talking about on the rim. They were literally referring to they were worried about him injuring his hands on the rim because of just how hard he throws it down every single time he dunks. I that story stood out to me, and now that I've watched him play, in these few games, it's starting to make sense. That man, it's like when he dunks, it's like he's angry at the rim. He's trying to punish the rim, and that's nice to see. I hope that's something that continues because, look, I don't know, it's hard to explain dunks in the NBA, but they always feel like there's momentum behind them. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe somebody needs to do some actual analysis on this and see if dunks have any impact on momentum in any way. But for me, maybe it's like dumb lizard brain stuff, but it feels like it when it dunk goes in. Basketball good. I want him to throw it down hard.
Someone has definitely done that before. There's no way that hasn't been done. I just don't.
I don't want to know unless it confirms the way I feel. So
okay.
If you know that analysis, don't, and it doesn't confirm the way I feel,
every other
don't tell
human
it to
being on this planet. Congratulations.
That's right.
Dunks are fun. I agree with you there.
Don't break my dunk bubble.
We are 40 minutes into this podcast and are in serious need of talking about Kobe Bryant. Can we do that for the next 10 minutes?
Yes.
Can you promise to talk to me about Kobe Bryant?
unfortunately, we're coming off of his only bad game.
Sure, we are.
But the first, and you know what? I'm actually kind of grateful he had a bad game because that was going to be.
Just to walk you back a little bit.
Yes, honestly,
you were gonna come out hot with the Devin Booker comparisons.
If he had the third good game in a row where he looks like an offensive star, game
dude,
2.
you were already tweeting during the last game the videos of Kobe Bryant with the
halfway through
the
game
thinking
2
emoji. I wonder who this is. Like,
halfway through game 2, I had Grayson Allen on the trade machine. Like halfway through game 2, and I'm just like, thank you for your services, Grayson Allen. Good luck on your next team. We've got this covered now. You can go now. So for me, it's good that I had like a coming down back to earth game for Kobe Bryant, because like ultimately it's summer league. Like some of these guys explode in summer league, and then like Reed Shepherd last year, and then didn't play at all in the NBA. Reed Shepherd didn't play at all in the NBA. Now he's exploding again in summer league. We'll see if he plays for the Rockets going forward. But like Kobe Bryant, we don't know. But like you just see a lot there with him as far as a shooter, that it's just not normal shooter type behavior. And that continues. We saw it in his college highlights. We saw it in watching some of the games that he played in college. You know, one game he went 7 for 7 from 3 before he missed a shot. And in the first 2 games, the first game he had 19 points. I think the second game he had
15
or 16 points. Yeah, there it is, 15 points. And he just looks great when he's out there. And in this game, he missed shots. And I think for guys like him, there will be games where he missed shots. They obviously had a lot more defensive pressure. By the way, the Kings in general played really good defense today. They, I don't want to give them credit because I want to just focus on the Suns, but they did. They played good defense today. And there was more defensive pressure on him in this game, and he struggled to get those shots off clean, and didn't look as good as it did previously. But yeah, I'm still very excited about him.
The spacing, because of kind of the front court situation, was just a disaster. And a lot of times when Kobe was on the floor, it kind of felt like he was the only shooter anyway. So it was just so much easier to get into his airspace and contest shots. But what I love so much about his game is that he is not a standard shooter who just takes catch and shoot threes. Like he has an uncanny ability already to create his own space off the dribble. He's got the sidestep 3. He's got the step back 3. He's made a couple of mid-range shots. He's gone all the way to the basket, take the contact, get an and one. This is stuff he's done in only 3 summer league games, only 2 of which were good so far. He's like shown us so much of his bag already that this is just a really skilled basketball player. And couple that with the fact that he's 6'6". I know he has a negative wingspan, and I know there's going to be defensive concerns and whatever, but like I still think what you were saying the other day online really rings true. How does a guy who's this skilled and this good of a shooter at 6'6", how does that guy go 41st overall or whatever he was? How does it happen?
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. That's crazy.
It's he's 22, right? And that's the main thing. But like in his previous 2 years before his last year at Kentucky, he shot 50, but he shot better from 3 in those previous 2 years. I mean, in Kentucky, I think he really showed just the amount of ways that he can shoot, like off movement, off of fakes, side steps, pump fakes, pass fakes. Like he did all the things that you want NBA shooters to shoot. And we were talking about it while watching him play as well. Like if he was doing all these things and he was 6'2" or whatever, you could question if he was Langston Galloway. That was the guy I brought up. Yeah. But being 6'5", which is what he measured without shoes, so he puts shoes on, he's over 6'6". Like he's taller than Devin Booker, and being able to shoot in the way that he can. If there's anything there defensively, and I'm not sure there is, right? He was getting targeted in this Kings game. I'm not sure how much there can be there defensively, but if there's anything there defensively, this man's going to carve out a role in the NBA before the end of this season. Like he'll be playing on the Suns this year.
He's got the high release point. He's got a crazy amount of hang time on his jumper that is it just is reminiscent of Booker. That part of his stroke, the amount of space he gets, and the amount of lift in his lower body. So much so that, there's that picture. The Suns took a picture of him making that mid-range shot. I think it was along the baseline over Asa Newell. This was in their last game, not the Kings game, but the Hawks game. Asa Newell plays for the Hawks and is like one of their main featured prospects and had a great game. But like that picture right there that I'm thinking of that I shared online is exactly what you're talking about. Like he's barely getting this shot off over a hybrid big in Asa Newell by 2 or 3 inches because he is 6'6" with shoes. And a 6'2" player cannot do that. A 6'2" player is going to be blocked when they attempt that shot.
And that shot, by the way, was off of a pick and roll, a drive to the left, right shoulder into the defender, step back, fade away, mid-range shot, which is the Devin Booker special, as we know, that he essentially created because the shot clock was winding down. And that's a different type of shot than we expect him to do.
And it's just not like, oh, he wants to be Duncan Robinson. Oh, he wants to be Joe Harris. Like, no, there's more in what he's studying. He's studying Devin Booker in his game. Now, does he have the talent to get there? In 99% of realities, no. Let's just be honest. But, like, there is more to this guy's game than run up and down the court, go to the corner, shoot a three. Way more. Way more. And you can see it. You can see it. He's really exciting. I mean, like, all of them are exciting in their own ways, right? But, like, Kobe Bryant, he could cook this year. It would take some, like, something would have to happen. They would have to not only get rid of Beal, but then maybe they make a 2-for-1 trade at some point, that includes some combination of Grayson and Royce and Nick Richards, and then another spot opens up and they convert Kobe Bryant, right? Like, a lot of machinations would... It takes steps.
He can play 55 games or whatever, even as a two-way. So
yeah,
they don't even need to do that.
I think up to 50. I mean, he's going to cook at some point this year. I know there's the depth chart and there are a lot of shooting guards on this roster, but man, this guy can play right now. And if he ends up in, just playing for the Valley Suns for most of the season, y'all should go watch the Valley Suns because he's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think I've already thought about that. Like, because if he's on the Valley Suns now, and we're watching Summer League, and he's the third or fourth option. I mean, if he can get open, he's going to shoot more. But like the ball ends in his hands; it doesn't start in his hands in any play. But if he's on the Valley Suns, he's the number one option. He's out there to shoot as much as possible, and there will be games where he's scoring 30 or 40 in the Valley Suns, and it's worth the price of admission considering you can get into that game for $20. How much are the hot dogs at Valley Suns games, Sam? You went to one.
This is actually such a scam, if we can talk about this for a second. So the $2, did you guys know that the $2 deal that Matt Ishbia implemented at Footprint is only for the Phoenix Suns games? Oh, and maybe the Mercury games as well. I haven't been to a Mercury game. Someone who's been to Mercury games can tell me. But presumably the $2 hot dog soda thing is at all Footprint arenas. Because Mullet Arena is owned by ASU, is that right? Yeah. So these cocksuckers, I'm just going to say it. You walk into Mullet Arena and you're there with like 300 other people to watch some Valley Suns games and Jalen Bridges. And it's like, yeah, I'm still going to have a good time. But why is my Dasani water bottle $6 now? Now I'm angry. So, yeah, the hot dog prices and the water bottle prices are not the same at Mullet Arena as they are at Footprint Center.
So
there you go.
Before you go see Kobe Bryant.
I mean, it's like $5. It's like a $5 hot dog.
Stop at the In-N-Out on the way.
It'll be fine.
There's an In-N-Out right down the road. Just stop there. And then go see Kobe Bryant cook. Fleming played today. It's the only time we've seen Fleming play. Was against the Sacramento Kings. Didn't play a lot from my memory. I don't know his exact minutes in this game. Had a couple of shot attempts. Had one dunk blocked at the rim. Really disappointed. I was hoping to get a good dunk out of him. And after the game, 14 minutes, yeah. So didn't play much. He had right knee soreness. I imagine they probably purposely didn't play him a lot. Maybe he would have played more if they were in the game. unfortunately was playing in the game at like essentially at the 3 when he was in at times,
Yeah.
which was just really unfortunate for him because like I'd rather see him at the 4 or 5. Like I do hope, and I was happy to see Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro. I do hope neither of them play in the next game and we get a starting front court of Fleming and Malawach. I want to see those two guys play next to each other as like the two big positions as forward and center and see how they look playing next to each other. I know it won't be pretty. Like I'm prepared for that based on the guard play that we have. Neither of these guys can dribble very well, but like this is their natural positions and I think they could play pretty well together defensively in those positions. Because at times Fleming today, who by the way looks huge too, he just looks huge. He's got really long arms and he's just a big guy for the position that he's likely going to play in the NBA, which is power forward. Out there running around like a maniac, has a ton of energy and is really fast for his size, which stands out in his college film as well, just how fast he is at his size, but also stood out today against NBA players and pseudo NBA players, but didn't quite know where to be because as the 3, you have to move around on the court a lot more than, say, the 4. Mm-hmm. And I would like to see him play more of his natural position. Hopefully he's feeling okay for that next game on Wednesday. Had one really nice fadeaway. Otherwise, we really haven't seen much from him. I'm still just excited. He just has like an NBA ready body and you can see it out there. Looks fast, looks strong, looks tall.
When he suited up or when he played, like he comes in, he's the 3, like you're saying, and he was playing with CJ Huntley at the 4 and Oso at the 5. And he has longer arms than both of those guys. He has a longer wingspan than both of them, which is just so funny. Yeah, he looks the part. He did make a corner 3. That's going to be important, by the way, because I think Rasheer didn't always shoot a ton of corner 3s at St. Joe's. Like, he had good 3-point percentages around the arc everywhere, and that's definitely something they were projecting. But I think he took more above the break 3s at St. Joe's than he did corner 3s. So corner 3s are going to be a big part of his game, just like, you know, the basic way that he earns minutes at the next level, especially if he's playing the 3, like you're saying. So that stuff's going to be important. Yeah, only played 14 minutes here, so obviously this is the guy we're going to have the least to say about, but I'm excited to see more of him in action.
I am too. I think that we'll probably, like you said, maybe on Patreon, but have a podcast after the next and last final game, and then, of course, come back on the main feed and have just a general conversation on the Summer Suns and how we're feeling. And honestly, there's probably going to be more to talk about this week as we started the podcast with. But Fleming is a guy that I just really want to see more of. And if he's not fully healthy, if there's any fear with that knee, just don't play him. Like, it's fine. Just don't play him. We don't need to risk anything for a summer league. It's fine if he can't play. But if he's healthy and feeling good, I would like to see more minutes with him out there playing the power forward position and see what it looks like. Essentially playing Malawach next to another big who can shoot and see what it looks like with both of those guys out there. CJ Huntley, you mentioned him, did play. First game looked pretty good. Next 2 games looked a little lost, but like this is we're talking about the Valley Suns. This is a Valley Suns player through and through, I would guess. Mm-hmm. There's probably not a huge chance of him playing a ton of minutes with the Suns roster, but also looks huge. They clearly drafted guys who were big and long, and they want to try to develop those guys and see if there's anything there. And for him, the size looks NBA ready. The hands I think have been a problem for him a little bit.
Yeah,
and,
I blame him, and I also blame the point guards on the roster.
Hard,
it's kind of both. But I definitely do partially blame him. I think you could just tell that he's an energy big, and I think that was his role in college too, frankly. So he's going to have some plays where he's finishing at the rim, and he's going to create some extra possessions sometimes, and he can look really good, but also his game is going to be totally dependent on a point guard's ability to get him the ball. And those bounce passes that they were throwing at him in the last 2 games, like he could not get a handle on any of them. Mm-hmm. Also, he was playing some center for a few minutes, which was weird because I think that's not something he ever did in college. So that is just like a weird roster construction thing there too.
I actually do think that if he's capable of doing that, that could help him in the NBA. Because being being a power forward who can kind of shoot and kind of do other things is valuable. But being a center who can kind of shoot actually makes you one of the better shooters at the center position in the NBA.
Definitely.
So, if he can find ways to, maybe it won't be on the Suns, but just talking about his future as a potential NBA player, the combination, the skill set of having the long arms that makes you a potential rim protector who can also shoot, you can carve out a role as a backup center in the NBA or a backup, hybrid forward center in the NBA pretty easily if you can combine those two things. So
yeah, and just as a reminder to anyone who maybe hasn't looked into his background, but he did shoot 36% on threes this last year at Appalachian State on 3.8 attempts per game. So, I mean, yeah, okay. He took a couple, I think, during that Hawks game, missed them both. But in theory, there's a little bit of pop to his game. But I definitely wouldn't call him he's not known for his shooting, right? It's just kind of like a cherry on top that they're hoping can project towards something.
Quickly, Bradley Beal. We mentioned it earlier. I'm expecting a buyout very soon. The Suns technically, they can roster up to 15 players based on some of the numbers that we've seen David post online. I expect them to roster 14 players, but that does mean that when Bradley Beal is bought out, assuming that happens in the next day or two at most, which of course we've said before, so who knows, things can change. But assuming that does happen the next day or two, I expect them to sign one more player. Gambo has said that he anticipates that being a guard, a point guard, preferably, or a combo guard if they're unable to get a veteran point guard. He has sort of ruled out Chris Paul and Malcolm Brogdon, I think, were the two names, and Russell Westbrook, I think, are the
He's
three
ruled
names.
out the ones that we actually want.
Well, he hasn't said no to Cam Payne, but
I suppose. I mean, Cam would be fine, but I don't want Cam more than I want Chris Paul. In no world do I want that.
I agree. It's also just not overly exciting. I think Cameron Payne would play an important role on this Suns team if you'd need him in a pinch, which is kind of the Cam Payne role right now. And look, Cam Payne is probably at this point of his career only getting worse season over season, so we're not quite getting the 2021 campaign, but even the 2025-2026 campaign is better than not having a point guard. So if that's the guy, then we'll see what ends up happening there. Not a ton of other exciting guards on the market, but I anticipate probably that we'll get a buyout and a player signed shortly after, sometime over the next few days. So assuming that happens, we'll be back to talk about it. Obviously, we'll have a Patreon podcast midweek talking about the last Summer League game. If something big happens, a big trade, a big move, we're always on deck for an emergency podcast. Any last thoughts on the Summer Suns, Sam?
Rasheer Fleming game on Wednesday. Calling my shot.
I love
21 points on 7 straight made corner threes.
All right. I appreciate that. Well, thanks everyone for listening. If you want to join our Patreon, patreon.com/The Timeline, extra podcast every week, access to our Discord for all patrons. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll be back very soon.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.